What is the biggest threat to Western civilization? Extreme capitalism. A handful own everything. Business models move towards subscription-based. No one can afford or own ship because everyone is renting and subscribing to literally everything. The same corporations owned by the handful lobby governments and thus getting lost past in the interest of businesses and hence stop representing the general interest of the people. At the same time, the same companies and powerful individuals continue to divide the people and make everyone fight over non-issues while they continue to pillage everyone's wealth. America's war for profit it has become uncontrollable. The corruption of US politics from corporate donations has corroded the system. Other Western countries' economies. When the US implodes, likely through the massive national debt, the collapse of the United States dollar as the global reserve currency, it will take every other country with it. The Chinese don't have to fight anyone. Just wait. Fundamentalism, unregulated capitalism, a woke movement. But as many have pointed out, ourselves are built in entitlement. Many politicians in power right now are so corrupt and the people don't even bother anymore to demonstrate in the streets about it. People's focus is being drawn away through social media. This is merely my observation of the current Norwegian situation. Religion, more specifically Islam. The West has become too tolerant of Islam. Muslims usually teach extremely sugar-coated version Islam to Western non-Muslims. I was Muslim myself, but I left it after learning about the horrendous stuff, i.e. pedophilia, sex slavery, misogyny, and etc. If you want to learn about the dark side of Islam, go to our ex-Muslim. The way I see it, the ever-growing polarization and division within society could be the real Achilles heel for Western civilization. The inability to find common ground and the echo chamber effect of social media seem like a ticking time bomb. It's like we're all playing a dangerous game of us versus them, and that rarely ends well throughout history. I think if America splits in half between political parties, especially once Trump is in, civil war will weaken the US, opening the perfect time for Russia to fight NATO, and China to take Taiwan and Australia and Iran over Israel. A half-strength America is still a formidable force, but it is definitely worrying against half-thr world. Inequality, there's a pattern in collapses. There's a great podcast called Revolutions by Mike Duncan. He tracks in detail the lead up the collapse and after for I think 10 countries. Pretty much every time it was inequality and elites doing anything they can to preserve their privileges even if it meant destroying the state. Wokeism, lack of family, no duty towards your on earth is for our own and no need to think of the future, Abrahamic thought. Endless dollar printing. Destabilizing other economies, promoting war, destroying the East and using them for manufacturing to satisfy own hyper-consumption nature. Liberalism and market fetishism will continue in its zombie mode as things get worse and worse in terms of costs of living, lack of housing, etc., which will lead to even more Gilded Age level inequality. On top of this, climate change will exacerbate these issues into collapse. The planet in which each of us all use resources at a much faster rate than the planet can regenerate them, resulting in the collapse of the planet's resources and therefore a collapse of the population. Its own leaders, and their shameless disregard of the will of the people. Every voter base in the West is against mass immigration from non-Western countries. Yet, politicians keep importing people from there by the millions. Just to name one example. Social media. Being woke, and misinformation. It's easier to get the wrong information that best supports your beliefs and share it to the world than it is to fact-check. Find the right information and become a more informed person. Capitalism is currently destroying everything. Constant inflation of currency has made everything you buy incredibly expensive, whilst companies have been getting cheaper and cheaper workers and more profit. The rapidly growing number of populist movements, they always lead to resource hoarding and inevitably war. That unlike past examples where resources were abundant, we are moving into an era of scarcity. Wicked leaders doing everything to stay in power. not doing what's best for the common people, always doing what's best for their own pockets and the corporate interests they are beholden to. Blind belief in a social system that consistently concentrates power in the hands of a few very wealthy white men at the expense of everyone and everything else, including the planet. People watch idly by and let extremists far left, far right, religious extremists, etc., take it down easily and lax on national defense. Europe should really do something about it. Concentration of land ownership and the resulting extraction of land rent, which will cause social instability. A lot of the symptoms are being listed in this thread. Tolerating intolerance, granting free speech protections to those who quite happily murder gays, Jews, persecute women and establish a theocratic society. Low birth rates. Developing countries have much higher fertility rates than North America and Europe. Eventually, we will fade away or get conquered. Radical Islam, extremist right fascists, and the overwoke sensitive prog-liberal extreme left. I'd recommend becoming an Amish, they've got it good. Drugs, civil unrest, illegal immigration, lack of solid leadership, media wasting our youth, brain rot from swiping left, right, up, and down. I'm putting in for climate change-driven food web collapse. Ain't great for any other civilization either. But the West won't get a pass. Western civilization. This is not anything special. In and of itself, most great civilizations turn out to be their own worst enemies. Islamist extremists, like the Arab League said, in 30 years the extremists will come out of Europe and there will be war within. How can you be satisfied with that old 2010 racket when there's a brand new 2011 racket with new safety panic reducing features? Too much steps in the name of progress. People can't catch a breather to relax and starve families. It's just constant grind. Greed and thinking warfare and contributing to corruption in other countries won't reach the Western privileged countries. Climate change. It doesn't care about borders or cultures. There's no societies left without ecosystems to sustain them. Many great civilizations in history fell partly due to slow, accumulating internal rot. External forces finished the job. The Republican Party, especially on its current speedrun to leader under the demented spell of Trump and the maggots. The inability to compromise and see someone you disagree with as a human with their own lived experience and opinion. Mass immigration diluting Western society, and weak liberal governments supporting the policies that perpetuate it. Climate change. It's going to destabilize everything. It's already happening, and it's going to keep getting worse. Culturally, wokeism. Physically, global warming. Nuclear war. Actually surprising we're not all dead yet. The people inside Western civilization who hate it and actively try to destroy it. Rome fell from within. Corporations are people. Thanks Antonin Scalia, you porse-clad and not breathing same air as me anymore. The Abrahamic faiths. Russia and China, unregulated capitalism, modern unhinged conservatives, overdoing of diversity, inclusion, woke stuff etc. at the cost of their own culture and heritage. Too many minority groups getting their way over the general population. Civil war imminent. What do you think of Western civilization? I think it would be a good idea. Gandhi, MAGA vanilla jihadists, and their kind of center-right but not really sympathizers. Tidworldism and Muslim immigration. Obsession with diversity and cultural enrichment. The increasing support for communism and authoritarianism within Western countries. Culture and social harmony replaced with consumerism and warped identity politics. Jihadism and the inability to realize the fact for a large portion of the West. People making the worst assumptions towards people with differing views from them. It's climate change. But it people focus on the culture war issue due to Eastern barbarism. Sources: Attila the Hun, Vladimir Putin, Lord of the Rings. Constantly this question. It creates an echo chamber and a freak-out nation. Social media and this divisiveness through propaganda from other countries. According to Yuri Bezmenov, it is the left and the idealism it pushes. Lack of children and mass migration of people with different values. Talk about a not with an agenda. Language really gives you away. Harvard students in US and Sciences Post students for France. Ignorance jeopardizes the foundation of Western civilization. Extreme of anything is bad, be it wokeness or the opposite. Political Islam. You hate to hear it, but it's true. Taking freedom of expression and democracy for granted. Western civilization, more specifically, capitalism. Wokies. They've already ruined Western civilization. Taking birth rates. Paganism replacing Christianity, nuclear war and mutually assured destruction still, complacency about our culture and creative freedom, mass exploitation of the youth of today, for profit. According to Reddit, the tipping culture in the US.